Alright, today's lesson is going to focus on factor by grouping. Alright, we've done a lot of factoring already in different ways to solve quadratics and polynomials. This is probably one of my favorites because it's kind of putting together a puzzle. Alright, so what we're looking for in these is greatest common factors. So these are going to be problems where the greatest common factor maybe doesn't exist in all of the terms, but it exists in some of them. So we're going to break these down. So I'm essentially going to split my equation in half. So 2 terms in one and 2 terms in the other. And then I'm going to look for greatest common factors in those terms. So if I'm looking at this first one, I see that 4n squared goes into both of those. So I'm going to pull that out, and I am left with a 6n and a minus 1. Alright, so now what I'm looking for is this term to repeat itself in the second one. So in the next one, my greatest common factor that I'm going to pull out is a 7. So I'm going to say plus 7. And inside, I'm left with a 6n. And to make that plus 7 a minus, I've got a minus 1. So you can see we match, which means I could pull out this term, so 6n minus 1, and I am left with 4n squared plus 7. Alright, so now we can check that this works. We can do our boxes and multiply these out. So I've got 4n squared and a plus 7 and a 6n and a minus 1. Alright, so multiplying these together, I've got 24n cubed. I've got a 42n. I've got a minus 4n squared and a minus 7. So if I put these all together back into polynomial form, you can see that we get back to our original equation. So this is our factored form of that polynomial. Alright, let's do some more. Alright, so this time, I'm still going to break it down the same way. First 2 terms and last 2 terms. Alright, so out of the first 2, my common factor is just an r squared. So I'm left with an r and a minus 3. Alright, the second one, I can pull out a minus 2, and I'm left with an r minus 3. Let those match again. So we've got r squared minus 2, and then r minus 3. Alright, you can check these same way. So r squared minus 2, r minus 3. So we've got an r cubed minus 2r minus 3r squared and a plus 6. So write it out. R cubed minus 3r squared minus 2r plus 6. We should end up back where we started, and we do. Alright, you don't have to check all of these as you're doing them. One reason you may want to is especially if negatives throw you off. Those minus signs, a good way to make sure that you've got the minus signs right is to go ahead and multiply them back out and check to make sure you end back up where you started. Alright, another example. Alright, this first one, I'm going to pull out an 8n squared, and I'm left with n and a minus 7. Alright, the next group, I'm going to pull out a minus 3, and I'm left with an n and another minus 7. Alright, so we've got 8n squared minus 3 and n minus 7. You could check that the same way. Alright, and the last example I'm going to do for you. Alright, we have a 7r squared, and we are left with an 8r and a plus 7. Alright, so this is what we're looking for to get in the next group. So there's no common factors in that next group. But I do notice that these are both negative. So that's actually the part that I am going to pull out. So I'm going to take out a -1, and I'm left with an 8r and a +7, which gives me my matching terms. So 7r² - 1 times 8r +